Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Dribble Drive podcast. I am your host, Austin Render. We got a great episode for you. Today is episode 50. Dalton and I will be joined by Joe McKeown, who has announced his retirement after the end of this coming season with Northwestern. He has been one of the best coaches in the Big Ten in his time since joining Northwestern in 2008. Had a great career at George Washington. We're going to read through some of that here in a second, but he'll join us, and his daughter, Meghan McKeown, we go quad box on you here. It's going to be a wonderful episode. Had a great time catching up with those two. So we'll get to that conversation here in a moment. Just want to remind you, we are a part of the Back Home Network YouTube channel, which is where you can find all our episodes in video form. We'll have some great graphics. We're going to continue to unroll those as we go into year 2 of the podcast. You can also find us in podcast form if you're driving. You want to listen to us in the audio landscape. That's on Apple and Spotify podcasts. Wherever you're taking our content in, we like the downloads, the subscriptions, the ratings of the episodes. Give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. And tell a friend as well. Every friend you tell grows our podcast a little bit more. So we appreciate that, certainly. But as we get into this podcast, just reading off some of the accomplishments of Joe McKeown in his career. It didn't start at George Washington, but that was really where he picked up steam. Had 441 career wins there, had a 250-52 record in conference at George Washington, made the NCAA tournament the last 6 seasons there, including back-to-back Sweet 16s that eventually led him to getting hired at Northwestern in 2008. He's the all-time winningest coach in women's basketball history at Northwestern. Currently 4th among active Big Ten coaches in total wins. He's a Big Ten Coach of the Year and conference champion back in 2020. 777 career wins in his head coaching career, 11 regular season conference titles, 6 Coach of the Year awards. He's done it all, and there's nobody better to talk about somebody than their daughter. So we brought Meghan McKeown on as well. The two of them have a great back and forth. This is an awesome conversation, so we're really excited to bring it to you. So without further ado, let's hear that conversation between me and Dalton, as well as Joe and Meghan McKeown here at the Dribble Drive. Yeah, we are now quad boxing, I think, for the first time in the Dribble Drive's history. Austin and Dalton, joined now by Meghan and Joe McKeown. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. We've been excited about this episode. Just an awesome couple of people to have here on the podcast. I know Dalton and I are fired up for this. Thank you guys for doing this.
Oh, yeah. I consider myself a friend of the show, so I'm excited to be back with y'all, with my very special guest here.
Yeah, first 3-time appear on the show beside Dalton, who then just became the co-host. But I guess that's how you do it. You appear a couple of times, and then you sweeten the pot and you get on the show. But Meghan on for a 3rd time. Thank you guys. Let's just start kind of Joe, I want to start with you back at the beginning when Meghan was kind of taking up the sport of basketball or just kind of growing up in general. Did you nudge her at all into the sport? Could you tell she was going to be a natural? Did she like other sports better? What was kind of that relationship like as you guys grew through that?
Yeah, wow, that's a good question. My other daughter Allie was a gymnast, and we took her every night to 5-hour practices. Meghan, I just drag her along everywhere we went, every gym, every practice, and we would put like a VCR in the wall, and she'd watch some videos of, Beauty and the Beast or, something like that. And in between, she just would shoot. And, so she never had a chance to do anything else. We never let her.
Well, it worked out pretty well. I was going to say, Meghan, your perspective of it.
Well, it was so cool growing up in this. It's, to me, it's the greatest childhood ever. You grow up around basketball. So I would go into practices, and like while he was practicing, like you mentioned, he'd have the TV set up with like VCRs for me to watch movies. I also would get my ankles taped by the trainer, which was really exciting. It's also where my love of Band-Aids began. I would raid the trainer's bag of equipment, and they were all very nice to let me do that. But yeah, all I knew was like growing up and going to the gym and hanging out with these college girls who were, incredible basketball players, and just like hanging out with my dad. We'd go get a sandwich at the corner deli. And yeah, that's how I spent my weekends.
When did you know that college basketball was in the cards for you? When did you kind of feel like, okay, I could do this, I have a talent? When did you feel like that was the next step?
I always wanted to play college basketball just because I was around it all the time. Probably in high school, when I started, really getting into AAU, and I got invited to a couple of like elite camps, including like the Nike Skills Academy, which was back when I was in high school, a really big deal to get invited to. So I'd say probably then is when I thought that college basketball might be a path for me. But I never like wanted to play for my dad, especially when he was at GW. Like those teams were so good then, and I just didn't want the stigma of like being the coach's daughter. But obviously, like a very unique set of circumstances where, he takes the Northwestern job in 2008, and big part of that move was for my brother Joey, who has autism, and the services were just much better in Illinois than they were in Virginia, where we were living. And so like when I moved there, I was kind of like, okay, it's kind of an ideal situation for me to stay close to home with my family, with how close we are, and just to help out with my brother and my sister, who's 10 years younger. And also I had the opportunity to go study journalism at the best journalism school in the country. Northwestern's not a bad academic institution either. So that was, I was really fortunate to have that opportunity, but in high school, to make a short story long, in high school, I probably thought that path was for me.
Well, and you bring up journalism, you talk about the move to Northwestern. I think there's a lot of things to get into, but Austin and I both are golfers, and we actually have a round that we're planning on. We're pretty excited for it. But I got to tell you, when I read the release from Northwestern about Joe McKeown this upcoming season being the last before you retire, and you were quoted in there saying on a golf course that Mike Wilbon told you belonged at Northwestern, so you win. I got to know more about this round with Mike Wilbon that set the path for you.
Michael's golf game and mine still need a little bit of work, but he was a great friend. He was back then before PTI, and he was still doing. He was a columnist with the Washington Post and was doing a lot of covering a lot of different things then, and he was such a great ambassador for women's basketball. I would always play Pat Summitt in Tennessee, or, he would come to our games, and, he was a great, just a great person to have behind you. And then, we were really good friends, and we get to play golf sometimes. And the one time in Maryland, it was a course in Maryland, he said, Joe, you ought to take a look at Northwestern. I know they stink right now, but, they could be really good. And, that's kind of how I got started with it. And the athletic director at the time, Jim Phillips, had just taken the job, and he flew us all out, and he was really aggressive in recruiting our family, so that was important to us. And Wilbon and I still play golf in DC when we can, or he comes to Chicago, and so we have a good time. His normal partner, his normal game is usually with Michael Jordan and that group, so I don't get invited to that game. But he's the best, and he was a great mentor, obviously, for Meghan when she was a student at Medill at Northwestern.
Did you ever envision when you took that job the amount of success you would have at Northwestern, becoming the all-time winningest coach, getting to Big Ten championship type of seasons? Did you envision that when you took the job?
Austin, I'll tell you the biggest thing we always thought, even, just on the outside looking in, that, the potential that Northwestern had, and having Chicago at your doorstep, and, being in the Big Ten, and just if there was a commitment made to the program, you'd have the opportunity to recruit, some of the best student athletes in the country. And I think we saw the potential, but to sit here 18 years later, winning championships, and, just the incredible student athletes that I got to coach, and see them in the WNBA, or, have different career paths that they wanted. Obviously, to see Meghan's success, and, a lot of my coaches have gone on to become head coaches, because of Northwestern. So it's been a wide umbrella. We've been really blessed.
It's fascinating too, because you have all the success at Northwestern, but as Meghan had alluded to too, you had so much success at George Washington, and you think about your entire career, Meghan. When the McKeowns, the family, decides to move and take this job at Northwestern, what was going through your head at that age for you, and how is that adjustment? But also, what has worked so well for your dad at multiple stops?
You can probably hear my son crying in the background, and that was the attitude I had when I was forced to move from DC to Chicago, going into junior year of high school. I still try to hold it against my parents at times, even though I'm 33. But I guess, yeah, you're right, JJ. I'm over it. Not, but it was so like that. It was one of those, we grew up in this dream scenario. It's funny because my husband's a college basketball coach, and he's always like, you had not a real experience as a coach's kid because you didn't have to move. You only moved one time. Like, that never happens. And so I'm like, well, yeah, can we make that happen again? But for my dad, like, all we knew was GW. All I knew was every single spring break I was at the NCAA tournament. Like, that's all we knew. We did the A10 tournament and the NCAA tournament. So like that success he had there, I just assumed he would have it anywhere he went. And so like, obviously going to the Big Ten, first season was different from what we were used to, but then second year or third year, you were in the NIT, and like it just built and built and built. And then to win a Big Ten championship, the 2019-2020 season, like, I don't think people realize how difficult it is to win the Big Ten, but win it at a school like Northwestern, where like you're not only like recruiting, Big Ten caliber players, they have to be like Ivy League smart as well. Yep. So like that's a really rare athlete to find. And somebody, dad is to the rescue to save the child.
AJ, yeah.
That's a really hard combination to find. And so it didn't shock me that he won the Big Ten and that he's been to multiple NCAA tournaments and he's had multiple first round draft picks. Like, that's all on par. He's Joe McKeown. That's what he does. So for me, that was kind of like my conception when we went into it. I was like, oh, well, it can't be that bad if he's in charge. So it was bad the first year, but that really wasn't your fault. And but yeah, it's been really special to grow up around somebody who is as good at what he does. And also someone who's like the kind of person that he is. And being in my position that I'm in now, every single place I go to, I can't tell you how many people come up to me and they say, your dad is the nicest guy, the best guy, all this stuff. And it's true. Like he really is. And there's like so many stories to share in which I can like,
they don't say that in Philly though. That's
well, I will say that. Funny you bring that up in Philly, because my favorite story about my dad is when we were at the A10 tournament. I think it was at Temple maybe, and there are these two college students who were just screaming at my dad the entire time. I was probably in like middle school or elementary school, screaming at him, cussing at all the things. And like as a kid, like that really upsets you as a daughter to see people yelling at your dad. And so they were just screaming at him. We weren't even playing Temple. GW was playing like somebody else, but these two guys just came down and just were yelling at him the entire game. So the next day, win that game, move on to the next round. We're playing Temple. This is the most elite move I've ever seen a human do. So these two guys are back. They start like, kind of getting going, heckling during warm-ups. My dad grabs me and my mom and he's like, come here, and brings us over. He introduces himself to these two guys. He was like, man, you guys have been good heckling me, man. Like, gives them their props. He introduces me and my mom to them, all this stuff. These guys kept their mouths shut the entire game. But it just goes to show you, like, kill them with kindness. That's my favorite story about him. How, like, I mean, like, believe me, he'll go for the jugular if he needs to. But like, that was like the biggest boss gangster move I've ever seen someone do.
There's nothing better to hush a heckler than to be nice to them, because they're thrown off. They're thrown off their game. They don't know what to do.
Man.
shut up the entire time. Do you remember that?
I do. And of course, you guys know when you play in the Big Ten at Assembly Hall or you play in the venues we have, you hear a lot of things. But, you also, it's what makes it fun to, to have these great, these great crowds now that we're playing in front of, and, how important women's basketball is to these communities too.
What do you mean, Coach? I know everybody in Assembly Hall is the nicest people in the world. They're all great. And yeah, of course.
Actually, if you're a college basketball coach, it's one of the great places to play. So, and I'm an old school guy, so the history and the tradition, and, to go in there and, know you're playing against great players, great teams, and a great fan base. And we love playing. I enjoy it. We've had our moments, and we played well there for the most part.
Yeah.
Against some of their best teams, and we brought some of our best teams in. So I think, the fans appreciate that too. We've had some great games, overtime games, and we've also come out of there with a few scars too. So it's but I know Meghan, just to 2 years ago, maybe with the Big Ten Network, people were lined up at 6 a.m. to see games, and she was. So, it just shows you, what a great basketball community you have there.
Yeah, I called the overtime game that you guys won in 2020, right before the pandemic. I was on Big Ten Plus for that, and it's one of my Joe McKeown nice guy stories. I emailed the SID trying to just kind of come to shoot around, just to watch. I wasn't sure. I was a student, wasn't sure what I would get. So I walk in, and Joe invites me over and sit on the bench, and he talks to me the entire shoot around. What do you want to know? Coach gave me everything that I could ever ask for, and just an incredible experience as a student to have that opportunity. So I've always been appreciative of that, and what a game that was, overtime win. And we're going to bounce around a lot, Coach, but that 2019-20 team, I did want to touch on that. Like, what a special team that was. And I know COVID took away. I mean, it's one of the bigger what ifs, in my opinion, in recent memory in the Big Ten, because that team was so good. But just kind of talk about the joy that team was to coach as you guys were running through that season.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. And again, the league was so good that year too, and it was so deep. So we felt like we had opened the season. Let's say the first or second game, we beat Duke on the road by about 25 at Cameron, and I remember coming back from that game. I'm like, we got a chance. We could stay healthy. We're pretty good. And when we got into the Big Ten, and there's just so much. You're still dealing with some COVID things, but nothing like what happened in March. And we just had a great year. We felt like we could play. I thought we could make a run at the Final Four, and I coached 4 or 5 teams in my career that I thought were good enough. And we got to the Final 8, or we get to the Sweet 16, just missed a shot or didn't. But you felt like you were good enough with a couple of breaks. And I thought that because of this, we could play big, we could play fast, we could handle, we could grind half court. And when you had a team like that, when you have a great point guard like a Veronica Burton, and our basketball IQ on that team was off the chart, and Lindsey Pulliam, these are pros. We were playing Jordan Hamilton. These guys were so smart, and they bought in defensively. So it was a fun team. They could run practice themselves, and they were big personalities. They were a lot of fun. And I talked to Veronica all the time. I talked to Lindsey last night. Sidney Wood's brother James Wood is probably going to lead Major League Baseball in home runs over the next couple of years. So we get a chance to follow the Wood family too. But it was a fun team. And the other thing, Austin, like you guys know, Dalton, in our league, to win on the road is so hard. And you got to have just a lot of toughness and a lot of poise. And I remember just in the Big Ten, we were 16-2, and the game that really won the league for us was at Ohio State last week of the season. And it was, it's just a great game. And I just remember, our team they just expected to win. And it was a fun year. And, not having a chance to, we beat Maryland that year.
Mm-hmm.
We were up 20. at halftime, and they were ranked, in the top 10, obviously, and they were going to be a 1 seed. We were probably going to be a 2 seed, and so I know I'm rambling on that one, but it was, it was a special team, and carried over. You just hated it, not just for us, but there's a lot of teams that could have made a run in the NCAA tournament, never getting the chance, and you hate that for your players.
And you mentioned the experience and success you've had in the tournament before, 4 Sweet 16s at George Washington, an Elite Eight appearance there too. But you talk about the success, Joe, and you've coached for a long time, but you also seem to be pretty prideful of how smart the group was of that specific team. And as you start to kind of work through some of those different variables and characteristics of people, I'm curious what your favorite part of coaching is. And I know success and winning games is a big part of it, but you seem to take a lot of pride in some of these other things too.
Yeah, and Dalton too, and you guys are, you've been around the game so much. Coaches love the relationships and the opportunity to watch players grow, and it's that's the biggest part. Coaches, we have a saying, right? Players want to play, coaches want to practice, and it's pretty accurate at any level, and I think you enjoy what you're able to get done in practice, and then off the court, with the relationships that come from recruiting that player, seeing how they bond with each other, and just allowing them to grow into the Northwestern community too, and that's and then probably the most rewarding thing is 4 or 5 years later, sometimes now. I was just at the Final Four in Tampa. I had so many players that played for me that came down, and whether they were GW or Northwestern, that's what you appreciate. You see them, 10 years later, really having the things that they want to do with their career and families, and those things, really would drive you.
What a good answer. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
No, so that's a good question too.
Yeah.
I like that.
Look, Dalton, I didn't bring him in here for nothing, all right?
I know, it was a good call.
Got to earn my keep. Earn my
Good
keep.
coaching decision by Austin. I will say something cool to add on to that. It's amazing, as we've spoken about with my brother having autism, and my dad's been such a huge advocate in that space, and in basketball for autism in general. And something really cool is how many of his former players got into like special needs teaching, and a lot of them were like inspired by my brother and my dad and our family. And I think that's something really special that you don't see all the time. Like, I don't know, it's easy to talk about the relationships, obviously, but like the impact he has had on hundreds of women over the course of his career that has, altered their lives, has been something that's really cool to see from my perspective.
That's awesome. And Megan, just talk a little bit. Let's transition back in time a little bit to when you were at Northwestern and the lessons you learned for getting. Well, you mentioned you didn't want to initially play for your dad at GW. So when you did ultimately suit it up for him, what were the emotions, the ups and the downs of that, like the positives, the negatives? Just kind of talk us through what it was like to play for your dad.
Well, it was overall like a great experience. But, it was really hard at first to go into a situation where you're a freshman and you just like feel like everyone thinks that you're there for one reason because you're the coach's daughter. So that was kind of a hard stigma to overcome. I was really fortunate that, my freshman year, I had great like teammates, and I had great seniors, especially like Amy Jeske and Beth Marshall, who just kind of took me under their wings and made me feel like I was a part of the team. And that was huge. And, developing lasting friendships, like to this day, Maggie Lyon, who was my teammate in college, is my best friend, and who's now on staff with my dad. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that was tough. I actually had a pretty good sophomore year and then ended up tearing my labrum in my hip. And decided to actually played with that my whole sophomore year, and then got surgery on that my junior year. So I kind of feel like I never got to like live up to my potential as a basketball player in a sense, because I dealt with that injury. And then by the time I got cleared senior year, and I was never going to go on to the pro level by any means. So I decided just to enter the workforce, which is what I was really excited about as my next step. But yeah, I think like, from dealing with injuries to dealing with like, I played in the good old days where freshmen didn't play, and you developed, and then, you got a little more playing time as a sophomore. So like, there are definitely some ups and downs in terms of like dealing with your confidence as any freshman headed into college. Now you can just jump into the portal and, go somewhere else and blame the coach. I would call, the coach's wife and just bitch to her all the time about that. So that was a nice advantage I had. No, but
There was a couple games when I thought I was going to have to stay at the Holiday Inn that night. It was a home game. But
I knew it.
You would never trade what we had.
Yeah. It was really special though. Like overall great experience. And I was really proud of like how he never made me feel like you're only here for one reason, like he made me feel like I was actually like good enough to be there. And then I was really fortunate my teammates made me feel the same way. I was a captain my senior year. And they voted for me. Like that wasn't a, rigged system. So that was pretty cool overall.
Well, I got a question then kind of for each of you. And Joe, I'll start with you. Speaking of your relationship and experience at Northwestern, Meghan, the player, what was the greatest asset of Meghan, the basketball player, and Meghan, after he finishes, the greatest characteristic of your dad as a coach? What are those? We'll start with you, Joe.
This is exactly why I bring Dalton in here.
I like that, Dalton. I like that. Yeah. I got a baseball field behind me, so we'll get you out of the bullpen.
That's right. That works.
Closer. No, I think the biggest thing, Meghan was so tough mentally and physically. So, she could handle, being criticized. She could handle the physicality. She would take charges and practice all the time. Just get right back up and fight. And, I think she was a great shooter, not a good shooter, a great shooter. And I think, her confidence level, she just knew, you leave me open, I'm going to make you pay. But she was so smart defensively, she understood our system. And, I think they were her basketball things that were her strengths. And, we took, we worked really hard on that. So, you just never had to tell her anything twice. So that's they were the things that really stick out.
That's nice.
Meghan?
You know what? There's so many things. I think his like in-game decision making is like Maggie Lyon and I will talk about this often. Just like his in-game decision making is really, it's elite. And funny, I was talking to some former Big Ten coaches about, we were grabbing some beers after a game one day, and I was like, who's the hardest coach to go against in the Big Ten? And they were like, I'm not just saying this because he's your dad, but like, it's always a chess match anytime you go against Joe McKeown in a game, because he's so good at making adjustments. And I've seen that firsthand. I love your commitment to Blizzard. I love the commitment to the matchup.
Mm-hmm.
You don't use the Z word in the McKeown house. It's not a zone. It's a matchup. But like, it's unfortunately you can't really play it anymore. But back like that to me, like it's somebody who's hung their career on that. It's just it's such a hard defense to scout against. Yep. Again, I've talked to coaches who are no longer in the Big Ten. They're like, we could never figure out how to scout against Blizzard. Like I was like, it took me 2 years to learn how to run it, so I get it. But he's just like makes great decisions. I also love his relationship with the refs. I mean, like nothing better than when we get an official, someone who's known him forever, and they call him Joey. That's like the indicator that they're on the end.
There you go, fellas. You heard that.
He can also, by the way, just so you all know, like he's very humble and kind. You got a cocky guy right here in terms of his play. Like he walks in the gym and just assumes he's the best shooter. He goes to do his little free throw shooting contest. He like led. He's still the all-time leader in assists at Kent State. He was JUCO National Player of the Year. Like he had a hell of a playing career, but like he still got some swagger and a little cockiness to him when he walks in the gym. And you're like, get out of here.
You talk about that confidence. We talked about Meghan and how she was introduced to basketball by you, Joe, but where did it come from for you? And how did you get to that collegiate career?
Oh man. Oh, you're going way back. Okay. No,
How
I
much time
think
do we have? Just kidding.
I think and actually, you guys, Austin, Dalton, you understand our sport so well. So when you grow up in Philadelphia, like I did in Philly at the Big Five, and I played, like, just to give you an idea, like Gino Auriemma played at Bishop Kendrick. That was our arch rival, Father Judge. All the great coaches that came out of Philly was because we had so many mentors back then, and everybody. Everybody, basketball was so important, and you always had somebody that would look out for you and give you an opportunity. So I just kind of got lucky and got had an opportunity at the right time. But you play. That's all you did. You played ball every day in the schoolyard and playground, and fortunate enough to have it kept me out of trouble too, because the other side of the school year, there was a lot of trouble going on. But I was just really lucky, and again, all the great mentors you have that growing up in a place like Philly, in the basketball world, that was really big for us.
Meghan, I know you interned at Big Ten Network while you were in school, and you went to the journalism school. But were there any thoughts about coaching with watching what your dad had done? Did that ever cross your mind?
Austin, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy.
Yeah.
Hell no. Well, here's the thing. I think coaching is the hardest job on the planet, especially nowadays. Like I can't believe what coaches are having to take on right now in the current climate of college basketball. But no, I never considered it. But just to show my psyche, like my dad's a college basketball coach, my best friend's a college basketball coach, my husband's a college basketball coach. So like I'm still very close to it, but I like being, when we go on trips, I like being able to like hang out and go to the pool versus like being stuck in the film room. That's kind of more my vibe, and I'd like to maintain that lifestyle as long as I can.
Well, and coaching has always been kind of rigorous, right? But Joe, in recent years, I mean, I think everybody knows college athletics has really had a change. What's it like to experience that in real time? How difficult is it?
Well, Dalton, you see it. You see it every day, and you see it not just in our league, but in college basketball. This portal has changed. Just what's going on right now has made recruiting so different, and it's kind of put it's just made coaching made it really difficult, because the things. It's funny. I was talking tonight. Chris Lowry, one of our men's coaches, great coach on Chris Collins' staff, who's been around a long time too. A lot of great job at Kansas State and Southern Illinois. And we were just talking about the old days when you coached because you loved it. You wanted to make players better. You wanted to teach the game. You didn't care. None of us made any money. We coached in junior college, and you could care less. You just want to take care of your family, and you just love the sport. And I think, there's a lot of things that are happening that, make that difficult. And there's a lot of pressure to, on players, on recruits to, you're transferring for a lot of different reasons. And, why would you go to this school or that school? And why would you leave it in the first place if you were in a good situation? So I think just trying to make common sense, and it's a challenge. I don't think any coach that's been around would tell you different. But again, at the end of the day, when you can you can keep the players that you have and still build, instead of piecing together, a team with 10 or 11. And this is what's happening in the Big Ten, because there's schools with 8, 10, 12 transfers, and putting that together is really hard on coaches. And some are doing a great job of it. It's a challenge.
Meghan, in as you go through broadcasting games and covering it and doing from that side of things, how helpful is it that you you have your husband and your dad both in this industry as coaches. Does that help you at all kind of understand what's going on behind the scenes a little bit more?
Completely. I mean, I'm literally living it with them because they both call me all the time and tell me about it. I'm just kidding. But yes. And I'm so thankful to have them both as resources because, I do have the perspective as a player, but I think one advantage I have in terms of my job as an analyst is I also have the perspective of coaches who have, done it at a really high level. So that has been invaluable for me. And just like talking the game, right? And just like sitting there watching film, all those things. Like I got to stay up past my bedtime when I was little if I was watching film with my dad. So I kind of started to figure out, okay, if my mom's cool with this, I'm going to, and then I just fell in love with it. So that worked out well. But yeah, it's helpful to hear their perspectives. And, like to that point, Dad, like everybody, like you, my husband, Patrick, like y'all got into it because you love the game and you love what it's done for you and you love, having an impact on young people's lives and helping shape them to get off into the real world on the right foot. So yeah, it's definitely helpful. It's also stressful sometimes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's the best. I wouldn't change it for the world.
That's a pretty good springboard too to ask Joe, because we got Megan's thoughts on you as a coach. Your thoughts on the expert analyst and TV personality Meghan
Yeah.
McKeown. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, she's doing all right,
All right. She's doing all right.
Doing all right, We no, we're just really proud of her, and I think she's very humble, but she's also knows that what I'm really proud the most is and this is a Michael Wilbon trait too. She does her homework, and she's never going to say anything without being able to back it up, and that's as you guys know in your business, you got a lot of airtime. You're talking about a lot of different things, and you get a lot of questions. You get blindsided on different things, and you got to be prepared. And I think that's one thing that even when she first started out, Terre Haute, Indiana, she learned from an early career standpoint. I'm going to do my homework, and obviously she can communicate. I'm really proud of her the way she can explain things and break it down. But she's not making stuff up, and she studies, for her job the way we do, in our. So I think that's one of her biggest strengths.
Well, for a while there, it was Robbie Hummel and Meghan McKeown who were doing about every game. Every night you could turn on the Big Ten Network and you're going to hear one of those two every night. But now I would assume that 3-time Dribble Drive guest members at the top of her accolades list. I would assume that that's really making its way up the charts. But what was that transition like for you, Meghan, from going from player to broadcaster and managing that schedule? Did it help that you had that playing background in terms of the scheduling and whatnot?
Totally. Because when you're a student athlete, like you have to learn time management. That's something they absolutely drill into your brain, especially at Northwestern. And also with my dad, if you have to be 10 minutes early, you're on time, 5 minutes. So 10 minutes early, you're early, 5 minutes early, you're on time, you're late, that like mentality. Right. So like also as a student athlete, like you feel like if you're late or not handling things right, someone's going to make you run. Like just that's how you feel at all times. Like that someone's going to be like punishing you with physical activity at some point. So like, that's always the mentality I have to like, okay, let me make sure I make this flight. But it definitely helped just putting a lot on your plate, having to manage different things, having to compartmentalize. It's a lot happening at one time, and being a student athlete, like you have to be able to do all those things. And I feel like that really helped prepare me for this stage in life. And now we throw in a baby and like, we'll see how that rocks and rolls. But yeah, it definitely all started back in college.
Well, do we need to tell Sloan and Mike and some of the other great people that you work with to make you run? Like if you see something they don't agree with.
Here's the thing, Mike Hall will actually take that and run with it. No pun intended. Like he will like bring a whistle or something. So don't
All of
give
a sudden,
him
I'm going to
any
look down from
ideas.
Radio Row, and Megan's running up and
Yeah.
down the
My call will
sideline.
find a reason. And Sloan too. I mean, we work with such great people. We're so fortunate. But yeah, don't tell my call.
And I was going to warn Meghan that a 3-time dribble drive, he might just end up being a co-host. That's what
Wow.
happened.
I know. I was going to say. I mean, what's the next step here?
She's got her own podcast. I wouldn't dare interrupt her own podcast.
And Meghan had talked about the new baby, of course, being a new mom, which congratulations on behalf of all of us. We're really excited for you. But Joe, being a grandpa, what's this been like for you?
Well, on Friday, I'm flying to New York too. So we're so excited, to spend the weekend out there too. But it's we're blessed, and JJ got to come to Chicago, a couple of weeks ago. So that was, he took over the city like Jordan and Pippen did, and so he made the most of it. So it's just a lot of fun, and for my wife and our family, just to to share this with Meghan a little bit, and just great times ahead.
JJ took his first unofficial visit, by the way, at Northwestern. So was there touring the offices, saw Trinans. We're working on an NIL deal as we speak.
The tally, unofficial visit, check. Does
He's
that mean
got
he took his first plane flight already too?
Oh yeah, he's taken 4 flights already.
Oh. Yeah, he's
what a pro.
Oh, he's a stud. He just sleeps the whole time. It's great.
Wow. I wish the children on my flight the other day would have done the same thing.
I tell you what, JJ's like better behaved than like some adults on planes.
I believe
so,
that.
Like,
yeah.
I believe that too. Yeah.
That's wow, man. Wait till he finds out about the flying private life that could be waiting for him in the future.
Oh,
Boy.
I know. So spoiled. I know. Exactly. So that's coming. That's why I should have been a coach. I could have gotten access to my own plane and everything.
That's right.
I took the easy way out.
Well, Joe, we've gone 40 minutes almost here. We should talk about one of the big. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Austin. Go ahead.
One of the big things, obviously, is that you've announced that this will be your final season. So as you kind of went through the thought process behind that, what ultimately led to the decision that this will be your last go around?
I think the biggest thing for us, we've been doing this a long time, and just wanting to make sure we share, as grandparents. I think that that's important, really important to us. And I think sometimes you realize there's a lot of things in life that you aspire to do and you haven't had a chance to, and we want to be able to do that. And then basketball world, I think we'll stay connected to it, so I'm not worried about that. But there's a lot of things that that we'd like to be able to do, and so that all played into it. And I feel like Northwestern, we built obviously a new arena and practice center, and so I feel like we're building an $800 million football stadium. So I'm hoping they save me season tickets there. We just want to stay connected to it too, but it was the right time.
I would think the winningest coach in Northwestern women's basketball history will have a couple of season tickets for him somewhere.
Well, I always tell Meghan, like you guys, 2 things you need in your business. You need food and parking, right? Like,
when I first started out like freelancing, like when I made the transition to becoming an analyst, I was living at home, and I would like drive everywhere in a 4-hour radius within Chicago to go to work games. And every single time my dad would be like, hey, are they going to feed you? And are they going to give you a parking spot? So like, this has now become a bit like, is there food and parking? Like that's always now our thing. But
look, this is a call to Big Ten arenas that don't have food. Okay.
Yeah,
media needs food. All right. It's just part of the process. When we're there, we want to have a bite to eat before we go on the air. All right.
And a parking spot.
And a parking spot. Yes.
Can't forget the parking. Come on. It's our
most of the time they're pretty good about the parking spots, but parking spots important too.
Yeah.
I want to go just kind of through some of the stories. I know we've talked some, but like Meghan, I'm curious for you. What was it like the first time that your dad had to get on you at practice and had to kind of straighten you up? Maybe you did something, maybe you ran a drill wrong. What was that like for you?
Well, I was probably more mad at myself than anything, but like when he gets really mad, I mean, I've watched it my whole life. He gets very red. And I do remember like a red, but like he's so chill. The funniest thing about Joe McKeown is he's like the chillest guy ever, like nicest, chill. Practice it like, early on. But when we get to a game, it's like he's no longer like, he's locked in. So yeah, the face got red. And I think, the paper went flying. I probably like missed a slide in Blizzard that I was supposed to be at. Yeah. And I kind of like on the inside, you kind of like laugh like, oh, wow, now like I'm in his shoes. I've seen him do this to so many other people, but now I'm the one who, is getting yelled at. So, but no, he was never, it was probably warranted, right? Like, so, I couldn't really be too upset about it.
I was curious if Joe, you were thinking a little bit. We talk about you being the winningest coach in Northwestern history, the winningest active coach in Big Ten women's basketball. You got 777 wins for your career altogether, 268 at Northwestern. I mean, it's really incredible stuff. And when we talk about Joe McKeown, we've talked about the chill demeanor. We've talked a lot about some of these different stories. You still have another season, so I'm not retiring you yet. But when you think of legacy, how do you want people to remember you, Joe McKeown, as a head coach?
Well, Dalton, I appreciate that question too, because when you have success in the Big Ten or in the NCAA tournament like we did at GW and teams that are ranked in the top 10 in the country, you're going to have opportunities to go to other schools, to go. I've had opportunities to go to the WNBA or different. I was almost a men's coach at GW one time. That was a crazy story, but you just that he was loyal. That he was loyal to his players, and he loved. We loved GW where we were, and Northwestern's been really good to us, and that those things, and we raised our family the best we could in those environments too, and. Don't ever move your daughter at 16 years old, a junior in high school, 1,000 miles away. So, but for her to have to go through that and, do what she's doing now, we're just really proud of our family. And I think that's how, the McKeown's roll, basically.
Yes. If I can also add to
Absolutely.
What your legacy is going to be, besides, being one of the most respected people to ever do this. The one thing I will always, what I'm most proud of with you, it's like, obviously the wins are great. The NCAA tournaments, the pros are all great that you've been able to help develop, but it's like how you treat everybody that we come across in an arena. Like Joe McKeown knows the name of every single janitor at the arena, right? Like this is who he brings Christmas gifts to. Like, the people that you take care of, the name of all of the radio people, not just at Northwestern, but at every school, right? Like your boy Matt Coatney and I talk about you all the time in Nebraska. Like, like everybody, coaches, everyone comes up to me. You're just like so beloved, but it's how you treat people. And it's the types of people that you look out for that I think has made you not just such a special coach, but a special person.
Yeah. Hey, keep coming, guys. Thank you. After spending all week last week in the portal, I need some love. It's
a pick-me-up opportunity here.
We got beat up.
One of the greatest to do it, Joe McKeown. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you guys so much for doing this, Joe. We'll have to have you back on when the season gets closer, and we can talk about your team that you've assembled. I know that process is still going on and will continue to go on here for weeks, but we appreciate you taking some time out of the portal scheduled to chat with us.
Yeah, Austin, Dalton, thank you, and thanks for looking out for my daughter. Yeah.
Look, 3-time guest. Hopefully we can make it 4 sometime when the season gets closer.
As long as you guys get me food and parking, I'll be there.
I think we can do parking. I don't know about the food though. I don't know how digitally that would work.
DoorDash,
we'll make it happen.
Dalton's got it.
She can probably get Caitlin Clark to call in because she her and
Yeah,
Jake can be tight,
definitely
so.
not. She's got much bigger fish to fry nowadays.
He's a little bigger than the Dribble Drive's budget, I
Yeah.
think.
I don't
But,
know. We'll see. But
well, if you come to
Excellent.
Bloomington more than I think you were only here like once last year, so we'll get you parking and food when you
There we
come to
go.
Bloomington.
Perfect.
That
Put
we
in
will
my
make sure of.
contract. Yeah.
Meghan and Joe, thank you guys so much. This was a blast, and we appreciate you spending some time with us.
guys, thank you. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.